We find ourselves on floor 1 of this simple plan. Let's begin by going down to floor 0 where we have built the 8-foot concrete foundation. And we'll use the camera to take a perspective floor overview. In a previous video, we explored creating a new wall type with a new assigned material and built this brick face on the outside of the concrete foundation wall. In this video, we're going to take the next step and split this wall into two assemblies, one above, one below. The one above holding the brick and the one below, essentially below grade, not using the brick. This is done in Chief Architect by creating what's called a pony wall. We can do that one wall at a time, or we can do it to several walls. And since we have such a simple model to work with, let's just go back to the floor plan view. Press the space bar to go to Select Objects mode. And since the only objects to select are walls, we'll just drag and touch all four walls and modify all of them as a group. So I'll open them up. We're going to change them all in the same way, at least initially. We'll want to go to the Wall Types panel, and here we simply click to check Pony Wall. And we get a lower wall type in addition to the wall type above. The program has selected these, but on top, the upper part, I want it to use our 8-inch concrete wall with a brick face. And for the lower part, I don't want the brick face, so I'll choose just the plain 8-inch concrete wall. We see it here, and we can also adjust the elevation of the split between the two walls. That's right here. Or we can adjust the height of the lower half above the floor, the slab. And essentially, if you add these numbers and then you look at this room and find out the height from the subfloor above to the slab, you'll get the sum of these two numbers, 104 and 5/8. So either one is good. Let's do the math and figure out how far we want to drop the lower subfloor. We have a 12 and let's just say 12.5-inch framing platform along with 1.5 inches of treated plate. So let's just say that that's about 14 inches. And we want to get our wood at least 6 inches above grade, so that's 20 inches. Then we need a little cushion for variations in the soil and gardening effects. So why don't we just use a number that's easy here? We'll go minus 24 inches. When I tab, you'll see this adjusts. And now the lower portion, the below grade portion, is much greater. We also want to be careful to align the pony wall correctly. It's currently set to main layer outside. Basically, this means that the outside layer of any of your main layers is going to be plumb in regard to the outside layer of the other wall. You can easily verify what you have by clicking Define and seeing that the main layer outside is this concrete, the 8-inch concrete, which is good. And the main layer on this one is obviously going to be this concrete too. You can also tell from the graphic here, this layer is the layer projecting farther out on either end, indicating it's the main layer. Then we can decide how they're going to display in a plan view. You can display by the default setting, which I'll just leave. You can also choose to display the upper wall, the lower wall, and various outline options, or both altogether. So let's click OK and find our elevation camera and take an elevation view. We'll work on adjusting the split wall. I'll turn off the color display so we can better see the dimensions that are going to pop up and the handles. You can select the footing, but typically when working with this split wall, we're not going to want to modify the footing. We're going to want to modify the walls and let the footing follow. And we're going to want to avoid selecting the top edge and getting the red handle here, because that's the default top height of the wall in relation to the floor platform. So normally we're going to work with the split between them. You can click on the bottom side of the split or the top side and get the appropriate dimensions. So for example, I can now click this and the red handle will indicate this edge moves, the default wall type stays where I want it. And I'll just type 24 inches for example. And the whole thing moves down. So let's select again either bottom or top and click the break tool, and we'll click along the split and we'll create a break, and you'll have a drag handle here and a drag handle here, and you can drag it down and you can use dimensioning. I'll just do 2 feet again. You can also click the vertical edge to get dimensions that will pop up and move that precisely with dimensioning. So you can work with your dimensioning and get this wall laid out to fit the terrain you're working with. So I'll just press 3 this time instead of going all the way over to click the brake tool. That's the hotkey for braking. Then click on this seam and drag down and so on. Let's decide that this is going to be a daylight basement and we're stepping down. The daylight side will be over here. So we want this bottom edge of our brick to come right down to the top of the slab here at the end. So I'm going to break it one more time. I'll press 3, click, find that little drag handle and drag it down. Now I could use this dimension. I know I have a 4-inch slab and I could use the dimension to place it to the top of the slab. But I can also use this tool, delete surface. It only temporarily deletes a surface from the view. It doesn't remove it from your model. And now the wall surface is gone and I can see that slab right there. So I could have used a 4-inch distance here knowing I had a 4-inch slab, or I could simply drag this down and put it to the slab. Notice the wall comes right back after you've moved this portion of it, but that's fine. We've got the job done. So I'll draw a grade line by typing the hotkey L, starting up here and dragging through and putting the grade line somewhere in here where it's going to then kind of flatten out or go a little bit down perhaps. So on this side we'll be walking out onto the ground here, and up here we have the ground roughly in this area. So let's drop our wall down now to get decently below grade in here. I'll press the space bar, click here, and notice I'm working with the wall, not the footing. And I'm going to press 3 to make the break, click here, and drag this down. Use dimensioning when I want exact precision. But you can now see we've moved this down. The footing has followed nicely. We aren't editing the footing, we're editing the wall, which moves the footing. This completes this side. Let's go around to the daylight basement side. I'll go back to the floor plan, get the elevation camera over here and take a shot, and we see this. I'll turn the color off again, and I can bring this footing down along the entire side that's going to daylight by selecting the wall itself and bringing this down and bring the cursor over, and notice you can pick up a snap there. So you're snapping your footing height along this wall to the same elevation as it comes around. And then you can bring your brick down. So I can select and drag. I'll bring it down approximately here, knowing it'll be safely below grade. And we have drawn the daylight side. We could draw the other side, stepping it down in the same way, and have our daylight basement condition. So there are several ways we can work with our foundation walls by creating pony walls and adjusting them to build a variety of conditions. Let's take a quick look at how we might want to restore this. Suppose we decided that in another plan that we're developing we could use the same building, but we don't have a daylight basement condition. We don't want to undo this step by step. So there are several simple ways to do this, and I'll just give an example of one. Let's go back to our floor plan. And we see from the step indicators that it's these two walls that we would like to restore to the condition to match these. I'll just press the space bar and select this, delete it, select this, delete it. And then let's turn on reference display. We see our first floor above. We see the walls we want to trace. I'll click on this foundation wall and use the same wall type edit handle and drag it over here. Notice I'll be able to pick up a snap, snapping to the floor above, to the corner. I'll do the same thing here, same wall type, bring it over and pick up a snap. And in a situation with a lot of walls, more intricate than this one obviously, this would be a very handy approach. And you can also find a situation where the walls aren't aligned because it was a bit complicated perhaps and you couldn't see well. So I'm going to arrow key this wall over, and as soon as I do, you'll see this appear. And this allows you to align the wall with the wall above. Click it and the wall will align nicely. So in a complicated plan, you might just go along and check how the walls are aligning by seeing if that tool is present or not. So this kind of completes our review of some of the ways we can work with foundation walls and get the kinds of foundation conditions we want.